I've got one flame to burn, one race that I can say I ran.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the 21047.com podcast. My name is Keith Cartwright. I am the host of this show, and I'm really glad to have you along listening in today, wherever it is that you're listening, and whenever it is that you might be listening in. Today's episode is sponsored by my friend Solomon Whitfield, otherwise known as Mo. Mo recently completed his first 100K run, something that he had been working hard for quite a while. He also recently ran with me in the Patrick Henry half marathon and helped me to a personal record. So Mo has been active lately, and he has been a long-time active supporter of 21047.com and this podcast and everything I try to do there. So I'm really grateful for the monthly financial support that he gives to me and helps me grow this mission. So I'm grateful for that. If you want to know more about sponsoring this effort through Patreon, you can go to my website, 21047.com, TWOTIM47.com. Click on the Support Me tab, and then that will take you to a place where you can learn more about Patreon, more about supporting folks like me on a financial monthly basis, just to help folks grow these ideas that they have, these passions that they may want to spread to the world. So thank you, Solomon Mo. You're actually the perfect sponsor for today's episode. I don't ever pair these. They just kind of go in order, but then sometimes they just align in a meaningful way. And today, my guest, Douglas Paroff, actually mentions in the interview how much Mo has meant to his endurance running journey. I happened to interview Douglas before he was headed off out of state for the first time for his first out-of-state ultra-marathon. He's an interesting story. 10 years ago, got started in this running journey because of a heartstring that got pulled by his young daughter. He had no idea at that time that he was about to enter a running journey, and clearly no idea where that running journey was about to take him. He shares that with us in today's episode. There's a lot of insight in this guy, a lot to learn about life and running, and funny how those often go hand in hand. Just so many life lessons in this running journey that we take on, and guys like Douglas Paroff, they really bring it to life in a really cool way when I get to have these conversations. So enough of me. I'm going to go ahead and hand you over to the conversation. Here is my recent interview with Douglas Paroff. I want to welcome Douglas Paroff to the 21047.com podcast. So welcome, Douglas.
Thank you, Keith. I'm excited to be here.
Well, and so like so many of the folks I get to talk to on this show, I've met you online and met you in an online running community. And so one of the first things I always like to ask is, and I'm always curious about, is how did you get your start in this whole running world?
In high school, I did a little bit on my own with the cross-country team and soccer, where so many people started. But as an adult, about 10 years ago, my younger daughter in third grade came to me and said, "Dad, something wrong with Melana's brain." Melana was a friend of hers that less than 9 months later passed away to a brain tumor. So the family got together and organized a 5K in her memory and to raise funds for childhood cancer research. So when she asked me to run that 5K, I couldn't say no.
What was it about the running what was the connection between running and then this little girl, Melana?
Melana just loved being outside, and 5Ks were becoming very popular in this area. So the family thought this is a great way to get people back together to do something in her memory, and at the same time, with race funds, donate that all back to cancer research. So it all kind of tied together. Their little organization is under a much larger organization's tax umbrella that it's just an amazing group of people. Everybody involved is just so positive, very, very similar to Meg's Miles.
Yeah, I've found that a lot in these running communities, and I wanna come back to this Melana. And so is the larger organization Prayers for Maria?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I want to come back in a minute and talk about that organization a little bit more, but clearly you at some point moved from the 5K to much longer distances. When did you step up from running this 5K for Melana to a longer distance?
I think somewhere in my mind I started that right away, but physically it was almost 2 years. I could hardly walk for almost a week after that first 5K. I was miserable. My ankles were swollen. My knees were swollen. I hurt in places I didn't know I could hurt. And I just kept thinking, you know what? What did this family go through? What did this little girl go through? This is small peanuts. What am I complaining about? The race director from the Friends of Melana 5K, I didn't know it, but she kind of tapped me on the shoulder for bigger and better things, whether I wanted to or not. She approached me and asked me if I would run a marathon. I told her, heck no, you're crazy. And I still think she's crazy sometimes, but in a good way. I kind of found Prayers from Maria on my own before I realized how big of an involvement I was going to have with Prayers from Maria or Friends of Melana. Before I knew it, I was training and even joined the Sunflower Striders, which is a group for Prayers for Maria that fundraises for the Cleveland Marathon and other marathons for the same childhood cancer research. And I figured if I do this and can turn around and show Diana there, I did a marathon, now leave me alone, she'd go away. She didn't go away. It was that following spring, she asked me, would you be interested in being co-race director with me? I couldn't say no. There was no way I could say no.
Wow. So you said when you started that, you said that in your mind you had already sort of been planning something longer than the 5K. I'm always curious about how somebody's mind is working that ultimately points them to something as big as a marathon, because I recognized that in myself before I ran my first marathon. That seemed like a really unlikely place for me to be. And it sounds like certainly after you ran that 5K and were feeling the pains and the after effects of the 5K, a marathon probably seemed far off. What's going on in a mind that, though, can still look to the distance and have some sort of goal towards a marathon? What about you made that sort of stirring happen in your mind?
I wish I knew an answer to that. It was something I guess the part of me that says you can't give up said, okay, you've got to do something more for this. And this is a way to do it. This is a way to really challenge yourself. I can't say it sounded like fun at the time, but it sounded like, okay, this is something I can do to show to the world around me that this really means something to me. This is really important to me. and I'm in it for the long haul.
How many marathons have you run since then, Douglas?
At least 20 marathons since then, I would say.
And you haven't stopped at marathons. So I'm in the process of planning to run my first ultra marathon, my first distance above that marathon. And I know you've been a big supporter. You know, you've had my back in this whole journey, and so I'm curious, what then led you from marathon to out there on the trails and these longer distances?
Friendships, fun. My co-race director, Diana, said, "Hey, come on, let's do this." So there again was initially that thought that, okay, I'll do this one time and she'll leave me alone about it. And I ran that first 50K trail race and said, you know what? This was a lot of fun. This was a challenge, but I think I can make it more fun, and I think I can do it better. So I had something to prove to myself on that one, I think. So I know the next question is probably going to be how many ultras. And you know what? I think in the past 4.5 years, I've run about 16 ultra marathons.
Do you ever look back at the guy 10 years ago who was hurting from the 5K and wonder how on earth you got here?
I do. And I see a completely different person now. I think that it has not only affected my physical side of my health, but the emotional side. I feel like there is no hurdle out there that is too scary anymore. I feel like that anytime I face the day, okay, what are we going to run into today, and how am I going to get around it? And I look forward to each day, whereas before it was kind of just the old grind. Let's get up, let's go to work, let's do what needs to be done. And everything is different now.
How does running make that change in us, Doug? Because I can relate to all that, and I'm always really curious about, because so many folks I talk to who run any distance but are, fairly avid runners, you would always expect to hear the big fulfillment they get from it being some sort of physical change, a weight loss, or doing these big challenges. But over and over, I keep hearing this emotional change, a spiritual change, a mental change. What is it about running that so drastically changes those aspects of people's lives?
I'm sure if you get into the biochemist part of me, you would get some sort of a chemical reaction in our body. But on the mental level, on the emotional level, on the spiritual level, I think the time that we're pushing ourselves sometimes to our limits, sometimes beyond our limits, the time that we're giving ourselves just to go over in our heads what's going on, what's bothering me, what can I do about it. We're giving ourselves the time and the peace of mind to sort things out in a very, very rational way, with no disturbances from the outside world, especially if you're running on the trails, away from the road, away from the grind of daily life. I think we just give ourselves time to adjust and sort things out.
Yeah, I find that's a fascinating answer, really, because if you think about it, wherever you experience chaos in the world, whether it be online, at work, and your family, a lot of times that comes about because these conversations or interactions just get going 1,000 miles an hour. And I don't think people often just kind of back up long enough to catch their breath and process those things and give themselves a little opportunity for some problem solving like you just described out on the trail. I think that's a fascinating answer, really.
Yeah, the trails are I tell people now, but the trails are my sanity. I can let loose of everything.
Talk to me about purpose. You know, to me, when I ask you how you got your started running, it was built on a purpose. This Melana, your daughter's friend, how significant do you think it is for runners to have this purpose in their life that goes beyond just the, you know, too often we hear a lot of people, we're going to go out running to lose weight or to get healthier. But for you, it started with a deeper purpose. How important do you think that is for running and getting this? You talked about getting a happiness for running. How closely connected is this running for a purpose and this enjoyment that comes from running?
I think they go completely 100% hand in hand for me. When I'm training for races, when I'm just training to stay fit between races and even during races, if I'm with friends, they know what got me started, and we'll talk about family. We'll talk about our own health and our own struggles. We'll talk about where we are with the fight for research for childhood cancer. And every time that comes up, my friends say I just turn into a different person. They just see a huge glow in my smile. When I'm talking to someone new on the trail, same questions always come up. So how did you get started? What are you doing this for? And I can feel the smile come to my face. I can feel a positive lift to my step. Everything just gets so much more fun for me when I'm talking about Melana and why I'm out here. It's almost too difficult to explain in ways. I just don't know. I don't know how that connection happened, but I look back at this little girl and I wonder, why were we so lucky? Why were we so blessed to have two happy, healthy, beautiful little girls? And yet Melana was taken away from her family at 9 years old. I've got to do something so that doesn't happen. And I just love talking about that.
What has been the biggest challenge of, because again, it's kind of not lost on me. Here you were, this guy that wasn't much of a runner, and now you are sounds like a long-time race director. What's been the biggest challenge of being a race director?
Timing. The biggest challenge for me has been finding the time to do all the behind-the-scenes preparations, to be trying to make all these contacts with race sponsors, and my phone number is out there, so I'm getting all these calls from people asking questions about the race. And sometimes with my busy schedule with both work, personal life, and training, sometimes it's easy to get frustrated, and you just have to make the time to get it done. That I think is my biggest struggle. And
so talk to us then about this race, and you clearly have this heart for Melana, this heart for making a difference. What sort of difference have you seen this race make?
I see it in the school community quite a bit. You don't hear people talk about her, but every year you see kids come out that you don't see out participating in sports necessarily during the school year, but they come out and they'll even walk the 5K route because they know, hey, this little girl this past year should have graduated with us. that there was an empty chair with a sunflower on it in the auditorium for graduation this year where she should have sat. So I see the community support. I see the community being aware that, yeah, there's something here that happened that was terrible, and we're trying to do something about it. I see the same people come out over and over and over every year and bringing a new friend with them every year, bringing a new family member with them every year. So we see the positive impact of people coming out knowing exactly what our race is all about. And we're such a small community that people who have lived here their whole lives or long enough knew Melana. No, they're not letting her go unforgotten.
What's this race meant to Melana's family?
I really think that it has meant so much to them that so many people might not be as committed as they are to helping find a cure for childhood cancer, or at least a treatment for it, but that so many people are willing to come out and help them. And we've seen huge changes in childhood cancer research. It was a dead end with this one. It's in the brainstem. Nobody can get to it to biopsy it. No one can get to it to remove it. There's no radiation or chemotherapy that has been affected with it. And now on the scientific side, on the medical side, we have been a part of raising hundreds of thousands of dollars towards research now. And we're seeing here locally at the Cleveland Clinic and some of the other bigger hospital systems research where they're saying, hey, we think we found a way that we can get to this and at least get a biopsy of it. We found a way that we think we can get to this and maybe remove enough of it to extend this kid's quality of life. Maybe it's not long yet, but we're making it. We're making steps. We're making progress. And every time we have a meeting about the race and we hear, hey, this research is being done now. Hey, we ended up getting the seed money, so somebody else donated $150,000 grant money. It just lights up their faces. It's so much fun to see. I can't even imagine trying to put myself in their shoes if it was my daughter. They seem so happy to see all this work being done and that they're a part of it.
Amazing thing too. I hear it in your voice, what you say about your friends, how they just hear this passion, they hear you light up. And it always amazes me how God takes a simple moment. And I'm thinking back to the beginning of the story when your daughter came to you and talked to you about this friend, and here you are some 10 years later talking about the advances in childhood cancer, describing in very great detail about the research advances that have been made, and just that one little spark from your daughter that I personally believe are these callings, these whispers that God give us, that you responded to that. And now, here's this guy who wasn't a runner, who's out running ultra marathons, pushing himself personally to some big places you probably couldn't have seen yourself going back then, and making a difference in a part of this world you probably couldn't see yourself going to 10 years ago, with people weaved in this sort of web together in a way that I look back on it and just, again, in this short time you and I have been talking, just trace this story and see God working some real miracles all along the way.
Yes. I never would have pictured myself here. And yeah, we kind of had the discussion online. Sometimes you need to step back and listen. And I think that you're absolutely right. It's God's bigger plan for us. Whether we know it or not, he's pulling the strings, and we just have to follow.
Yeah, and usually he's pulling us to somewhere much, much bigger than we could ever have imagined. I'm curious, you got any big running goals down the road there, Douglas?
I'm stepping outside of Ohio for the first time on a trail run this weekend. I'm doing the Boulder Field 50K this weekend, but that's just another stepping stone for me. The back of my mind, I've been training a lot with a group of guys that run, and women that run, some of these 100-mile races. One more involvement point, I captained the aid station at the 60-mile mark for the Burning River 100-mile endurance event. And getting to know these guys, getting to see them, getting to spend time with them on the trail. I want to step up and do my first 50-miler. From there, I want to do my first 100K. And then back of my mind keeps telling me, you've got to go for the 100-miler. I don't know.
There is something fairly intriguing about that distance. I don't know what it is, but it's way in the back of my mind, but there's just something fascinating about that and a calling about that number. So I'll be watching you, buddy. I hope you go chase that one down.
I have mixed feelings about that one, but I think it's going to happen at some point. I think the 100K might not be this year. The 50-miler, I think that might be a Christmas present to myself. Sometime between Christmas and New Year, I might just say, hey, I need to take a day off here from work and let's go and get it done. It's scary. It's very scary, but I think that it's something I want to do, and I want it so bad that I'm going to make it happen. It's kind of funny to me now. I look back, last weekend, I ran a trail marathon as a training run. Who runs a marathon as a training run?
It sounds like you do these days.
Yeah, and that's becoming more common. No.
But I think there's something powerful in that, and it goes back to sort of this emotional change. And again, when you were talking about that, I certainly feel it in myself. It's sort of this reversal where scary used to be this reason to stay away from different things. Scary was sort of this warning sign, don't do this. And now, in just 5 years of this running journey myself, scary is attractive. It's like when I look at something like this Georgia Jewel, and when I start reading about it, it's like, that's kind of scary. And all of a sudden now that's a reason to entertain doing it. But I think in life, there's a lot of people who don't experience what they could experience. They don't become their best self because they let scary be a warning sign, don't do this, instead of being a call to kind of come try to be a different and better and more risky you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The scary for me has become that calling. I am heading for the first time out of state for a trail race, and I keep trying, and it sounds like you do the same thing. I keep trying not to go and read the race reports, not to go and find out as much as I can about the condition of the course. I want to go find out for myself what's out there. What am I going to put myself up against, and how am I going to finish it? I look at it now as, what's the fun if I run the same trail over and over? What's the fun if I don't find new challenges. So I think that's going to be one of my biggest parts of getting this first 50 miler done, is the challenge. And we've seen it from our friend Mo. I've gotten to this point before, but now I have to go beyond.
Yeah, following him sort of pushes us all, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And he's so quiet about what he does, but so outspoken about everybody making a goal or stretching out for their first half marathon. He's so positive and outspoken about things like that, congratulating people and supporting people. And he's become another big drive in my running.
Yeah, and I think he's one of the first to say, too, that this running journey has taught him a lot about himself. And I think that's, again, when we don't take on scary, we rob ourselves of a chance to get to know ourselves better and get to learn more about our capabilities. And it sounds like you've learned an awful lot about yourself the last 10 years.
I've learned a lot about myself, and I've been taught a lot about myself. What people have seen happen to me that I haven't noticed, and they pointed out, is just amazing sometimes.
Well, Douglas, I want to give you a chance to tell us, when is the annual Friends of Melana 5K, and how can we get to be a part of that?
It is the last full weekend in June every year. It's in conjunction with Garrettsville's Summerfest, and usually our 4th of July celebration. We almost always have our own separate website, but online, if you search for Garrettsville Summerfest or the Friends of Melana 5K, it will take you right to our registration site. If you want to just learn more about the brain tumor itself, is called diffuse intrinsic pontine glioma. If you want to learn more about that, the Prayers for Maria website itself, prayersformaria.com, is there, and they always have a link for our website. They always have their own fundraisers. They have just a donation button. We don't have the donation button on our page yet, but it's very, very easy to get a hold of us. If someone wants to talk to me, I am always more than willing to, and I can happily give you my email if you would like.
Well, I will share all of this information on the post when I publish this interview, and so I'll give folks plenty of places to go, learn more about Melana, learn more about the childhood cancer, learn more about your race and how they can get a hold of you, and look forward to joining you in this run to support Melana's family, and certainly to try to, because that resonates with me. I got 9 and 11-year-old boys, and so just this whole idea of how am I blessed when somebody else's family was not. And I think what you have done, and I wish more people would do, is you've gone beyond the blessing. You've gone beyond feeling blessed, and you've kind of taken on, as part of that blessing, a responsibility to do something about it. I think too many people kind of feel good and feel lucky, and don't interpret in that we have this responsibility then because we've been given a blessing. And I appreciate that you've taken on that responsibility and have shared the opportunity with the rest of us, Douglas. I appreciate that, buddy.
Well, thank you. I've never even looked at it that way.
Yeah, no, I say that often, that we are a blessed country, and I get fearful some days we're going to find out that as part of that blessing we we had more of a responsibility on us to do more for others with the blessings we've been given. So I always love to hear folks like you who say that, I was touched by this, I felt blessed by this, and so now here's what I do in response. And I think Melana's family is lucky to have you. That race is surely lucky to have you, and I hope we'll all consider getting more involved with it.
Well, thank you for that. That would be amazing to see some faces I've learned to see every day on Facebook. And visit me in my small little hole in the wall of a town.
Yeah. No. Well, hey, good luck this weekend. Is it Saturday or Sunday? The Boulder Field.
Saturday.
50K? Saturday. What time?
Saturday.
What time will you be taking off?
I will be starting at 7 o'clock. I believe my start time is.
Okay. Well, I look forward to following it, because then next weekend I'm going to be on your heels, buddy. I'm going to be down in Georgia about the same time next Saturday, tackling the Georgia Jewel. I thank you personally while I have you online for being such an encouragement in that. When Scary started to get the best of me a couple of times, you've stepped up and said, you've got this, and I do believe that. But thank you in advance for all you've done.
I am so excited to follow you next weekend. This is going to be so much fun. It just relax and enjoy. You have worked hard. You can do this, and I have 100% faith in you.
I appreciate that, my man. Hey, I know you're headed out for a run this morning, so have a good run. Thank you for your time, and best luck Saturday. We'll be following you.
All right, sounds great. Thank you very much.
Have a good day, bud. Well, another wonderful interview. I truly enjoyed that conversation with Douglas Paroff, and I can say now that he did run his Boulder Field 50K yesterday. He had a great run. He rose to the occasion, did that scary thing of going out of state and taking on something new, and had a really great run. So proud of him there. I love what he talked about there, just in how running has made him a completely different person. And he talked about this whole idea of not being as afraid of things as he used to be. Scary doesn't scare him off. He talks about being a brand new person who loves getting out of bed in the morning. And so many folks that I've interviewed on this podcast, that is always a theme. You think about runners, and you don't often, and I was one of them, used to look at these runners out there on the street running these crazy distances, and you never thought for a minute these are folks out there trying to transform themselves into these brand new people who feel better equipped to take on the day, better equipped to use that running journey to tackle the problems that they may be having in their life. So I think Douglas getting up, heading to Pennsylvania, going out of state for the first time and tackling that 50K is just a running example of how life can be transformed by this whole running thing that so many of us love. So good job, buddy. Really proud of you. I will take that inspiration with me to Georgia next weekend, the Georgia Jewel. I am less than a week away now from going out of state myself, crossing several state lines, tackling my longest run ever, the 35-mile Georgia Jewel, 6,000 feet of elevation. And I am I'm looking forward to that one. I've been working hard this summer, so we'll see how that goes. But God truly pointed me towards a mountain, right? Because only He's going to be able to move this mountain. And that's always the lesson He wants me to find in this running journey. Just going out there, tackling things I cannot do on my own. And then I will have to lean on Him. And I'll be doing that a lot next Saturday. And a lot of you. I get so many of you that listen who've been really supportive on this journey, including Douglas Paroff and today's sponsor, Solomon Whitfield Moe. Both long distance runners who've really encouraged this crazy idea of the Georgia Jewel. So I'm grateful for them both ahead of time for all the support that they've given me and what I'll tackle next week. And I'm sure there will be a podcast coming up after next week's race to recap lessons learned, because I know already that there have been lessons learned, and I have no doubt up on that mountain for who knows, double-digit hours probably. There's going to be a lot learned and a lot to share. And I really look forward to doing it. It's the fun of going out and tackling all these things. It's just the opportunity to share with others the experience and then the lessons I take home from it. So I hope you all have a great week. If you're out there running, run hard. If you're not, get out there. Maybe cheer somebody like Douglas on who's out there just tackling some of the unknown, some of the scary. Just give them a little support. And if running's not your deal and you're here listening today, then think about making it your deal maybe. But if not, keep coming back. There are just so many great stories. I think listening to Douglas Paroff today, learning a lot about the people that are out there fighting for our young kids who are coming down with these horrible and just often untreatable forms of cancer, learning different organizations that are out there fighting those battles with families, for families. There's a lot here that's not necessarily running, that's just the fights and the battles people are taking on in life, and a lot of times ways that we can help them that not always are tied to running. So anyhow, you all have a great week. I appreciate you listening in, and we'll talk to you next time. See ya.